recording, and then I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself.
Okay, that would be
good. Action! Kidding. Okay, so yeah, would you mind to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi guys, I'm Florina. I'm from India. I recently graduated from Paris College of Art. My course focused on new media and fashion. So currently I'm working on my print design, textiles, and all that designing aspects for right now. So today I will be presenting you my graduation collection and my recent works, what I've been doing during the lockdown period, and so that you can have an idea about how my portfolio is and what my works are related towards.
Amazing.
So you can understand better about my styles as well.
Amazing. So I'm going to translate to Japanese to kind of help to understand.
Okay,
yeah. パリスカレッジバート今年卒業してニューメディアとファッションデザインの、大学院を出たところで、これからやるプレゼンテーションはその大学院でやった、卒生よね。卒生について発表していきますって感じね。Great. So, you wanna share your screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is it see?
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys see it?
Yes.
So in my program, I wanted to explore what the euphoric concept was, how you could feel within yourself about the environment you see. So this is my key inspiration detail. When I was traveling in train, I took this video. So as you see, when the train moved faster, it looked as if the drying leaves were burning, like the fire sparks were rushing to meet the ends. So I wanted to take this as my beginning of my collection's inspiration.
Oh, I see. Yeah, let me just translate. まあ彼女のそのコンセプトはそのどういう環境にいてどういうふうに自分感じるかっていうのがまあ出だしのポイントで、彼女が電車に乗った時に撮ったこの最初のビデオが大きい出だしのポイントで、そのなんか葉っぱがそうやって高速で動くとなんかこう炎が燃えたように見えるっていうそういう感覚から始まったストーリー。Yes.
And I wanted to represent into textures. So the visuals I see, I usually, since I have a background in leather design,
your background is what?
In my major, I have a major in leather design, specialized in garments, goods, and footwear.
Leather design.
Yes, leather design. Yes.
Like for garments, for including accessories as well.
Footwear, bags. That was my bachelor's program.
That's interesting major.
Yes.
Okay, let me just このまあその彼女はそのインスピレーションをそのパターンに起こしたくてそのまあこれを始めたわけなんだけど、彼女の大学時代はレザーグッズ系のデザインが専攻でレザードレスとかレザーのアクセサリーとかそういうのを勉強した。Great.
So I cut out the paper mock-ups and layered it together to feel the textures how I saw, as how you could visualize and feel the textures whatever you see. So I wanted to represent it in that way. So I also have some mock-ups that I have, like what kind of textures it looks like.
I see.
This is the kind of feeling I felt.
I see.
As the motion, the texture layered together. And I have some more. So this kind of feel and this kind of a flattened surface that could give you this volume and then also that movement there. So I kept the movement aspect more.
そう彼女が見たそのなんか葉っぱがバーってこうなんか電車から行く感じを、表現したくて、この今見るやつはそのなんか紙をカッティングしてからそれをなんかレイヤリングして作ったもので、さっき見せてくれたファブリックはその彼女の当時の感情をうまく表現できたテキスタイル。Great.
Here are some other like to see how to feel it. And here is one more. It's folded and then fringed together, and it has the shape. Again, I wanted to give a detail that would bounce back. Since I kept it together, it became flattened now. But I actually the volume, roundness over there.
Where did you get those?
This one, I actually carry some leather with me, so I thought, okay, might as well try some swatches there. And this is actually leather. This is Napa, sheep Napa. So these are the scrap leathers that I just tried making these.
Oh, so you made everything yourself?
Yes, I stitched it myself and mounted it.
Lovely. 彼女は全部作ったみたいよ。レザー、柔らかい羊の皮を使って、フリンジとか作ってやったテキスタイル集。Great.
So this is the last one. So this is the research that I did in my undergrad. The technique, actually, I wanted to reinterpret it. So it is double layered pin tucks. So it is, as you could see, this is one whole pin tuck. Inside, it has 2 layers of pin tuck, and then I trimmed it. So it's not a flat, so it gives you a print-like image, and at the same time, it gives you the texture there on a surface.
I see. なんかその 2D で見たときにグラフィック的に見えるけど 3D で作ったもので、さっきのやつはピンタックを二重構造にして作った大学時代に作ったテキスタイル。Amazing.
Thank you. So I wanted to draw out how the audience could feel it. So since this is a collection that I'm going to develop, I wanted to develop an installation piece, how the audience would feel what I felt, the euphoric feeling that I had, how I felt consumed in the leaves. Like what I saw was consumed by me, and I was just feeling the body itself is void when you see the textures that fills you so much. So this is the quick sketching that I did to explain how I felt.
I see. なんか彼女が見たその雰囲気っていうものをどういうふうに見てもらえるオーディエンスに伝えれるかっていうので、なんか自分の体で感じたものとかをそのガーメンツとして落とし込むっていうのの出だしのスケッチ。Right.
So since this new media, and again you have to balance it both, I wanted to balance the manual skills and then the digital skills together throughout my collection.
Okay.
So I looped the textures into the surface. Sorry, I think this has, yeah. Can you see it moving?
Ooh. Yes.
So I wanted that movement throughout the body, and then the textures filling the body itself. It's not body. Body is just void, and it's just the textures filling it. So this.
So what type of like software did you use for that?
So this is actually an app. So okay. It's a loop, and I used Photoshop to layer the leaves and added 2-3 more layers to it, so you don't see a smooth image. There's different layers, as you could see the breaks. Mm-hmm. And then I looped it in the Pixaloop app so that it goes to and fro, so that you can see the movement, almost creating an illusion in the body.
Right. そのなんか見た感覚っていうのはそのなんか動くなんか葉っぱがそう過ぎ去っていくみたいなそういうムーブメントを表現するためにこれをまあデジタルでも表現したくてそのなんかアプリケーションとかフォトショップを使ってそれを無限にループすることによって体の上で起きるそのイリュージョンっていうものを表現したものよね。Great.
And so now I wanted to, since that feeling of looking at the burning leaves almost connected to my childhood where I was in the beach in a merry-go-round, and then I could see the fire sparks coming from the corn vendor beside the beach will be like all the sellers here and there. So when I was in the merry-go-round, I could see the fire sparks going around, and it almost gave me the trance state in just one space, remembering my past and being in the present. So I wanted to create the whole collection of being in the trance state itself, how the motion, how the visuals synchronize together. I wanted to depict in my collection.
Why like those fire spark happens?
So they actually burn it. The corn vendor actually has that vessel kind of thing where the fire ignites, and then when you put your corn there, it just sparks out like that. The image as I have shown here, that's how it goes. So when you're in a merry-go-round, it goes in a circular motion as you're already in a motion. Mm-hmm. And then this one is almost surrounding your space outside. So I wanted to create the whole collection depicting the trance state, what I had, the past and present.
I see. だからその彼女が最初にこう 電車から見た景色みたいなのが、その自分の昔の過去のインドのメリーゴーランドの情景とか、そのなんか火花が飛び散る感覚とかっていうのがこう自分の中でこうミックスされて、そういうのをコネクションして、今のその過去の自分からその現代の自分におけるそのストーリーをコネクションして表現しようっていうのの、これがイニシャルのそのムードボードよね。コラージュ。Great.
So, keeping these elements, I developed the model of how the audience could feel in the installation piece. So, since the motion is going to be revolving in the same space and it's growing in the same space, how the textures are growing in the previous slides where you see the motion of leaves almost looping in one image. So, I wanted how a viewer, if he would stand inside that space of that spiral, and the spiral keeps moving. So I wanted to keep the element of circular in merry-go-round and the motion and the spiraling of these elements together in the installation piece so that I could take forward to my collection. So this would be the starting piece, which depicts what my collection is going to be about.
Oh, did you actually made this? Like,
yes, it's 3D printed. I
like
developed.
How big?
It's almost, I think it was the maximum limit was 25 centimeter to be printed on that machine. So I went to the closest. So almost like 23 notch, I printed it.
So
like
where did you print?
In college at PCA.
Oh, wait, they have this type of printer now?
Yes, they have.
Oh my God. Oh, wow. Like when I was there, we had like a tiny 3D printer.
Oh, yeah, there is that tiny thing as well, and then the big one. So I thought might as well make it a little bigger.
Oh, great. So 彼女はこのなんかその感情っていうものをどういうふうにインスタレーションとして表現できるかっていうのを 3D プリンターを使ったわけなんだけど、その今なんかその学校にこのでっかめの 3D プリンターがあるみたい。それでプリントアウトして、and then did you actually make motor as well?
Yes, I did the motor space as well.
そうだからこれにモーターがついてぐるぐるこう永遠と回るスカルプチャーを作って、その自分のインスピレーションっていうものを表現したっていうものよね。もうほぼなんか説明いらんよね。見たらわかるよね。このファイル見たらこういうの作ったらいなって。That was great. Is it like for your assignment or something? Is it?
It was the 3D printing assignment which we had. So I wanted to collaborate all the elements that would complement my collection and then draw it together. Yes.
So なんか 3D プリンターの Wait, that means like did you have 3D printing class?
Yes, we did. With Alessandro.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew that you would remember him. So yeah, he helped us in the printing, and then he tutored us Rhino. So it was. That's how
you actually like made this file yourself?
Yes, I did. It's the spiral generating from two ends. So one, I wanted to keep it open, and then one, I gave a head to it. Like you could see a head on the top, and then.
I see. そう、3D プリンターのクラスがあるみたいで、そこでライノのプログラミングのやり方を習って自分で作ったそういうクラスの宿題があって、それとまあなんか大学院ってそのなんかいろんなクラス受けるけど、結局は作るとか卒業制作だけさ、それに合わせてじゃあこのクラスで作るものでインスタレーション作ろうとかコンビネーションをしたわけよ。っていうのの作品。Amazing.
So these were the trial and errors earlier. So as you could see in the center, I printed it this way. So the weight couldn't stand to it on the head. So it just disintegrated like that and it fell. And these are my trials of how I wanted, like, having the details in buttons maybe or something, just an idea to the collection. Then I had to keep the stands over there, as you could see in the last image, so that it won't disintegrate the next time. So the model turned out nice. And I could only have the video taken of the animation right now because I left all my stuff there and I came. But yeah, it did work. So this is So this is how the model moves.
Nice. So did you make it on Rhino? These things?
Yes, this also was on Rhino, and then I just used Maya to give the animation.
Oh, そう、なんかまあ、これ PCA のまあ、俺も大学院でそれやったけど、3D プリンター取れる授業があって、そこで自分で作って、最終的にこんな感じで動いたがやけど、まあ、現物は学校にある木取れてないけど、今アニメーションで説明するけど、こんな感じでぐるぐる回る自分のインスピレーションっていうものをスカルプチャーで作ったっていうのが、まあ、今回のプロセスで、さっき見せてくれたのはエラーがあったりとか、出力する向きを変えたりとかせんと 3D プリンターってうまく出力できんかったりして、その失敗とかもさっき見せてくれたやつで、それをアクセサリーにも使ったらどうかなとか言ってテストもしよったっていう感じだね。Awesome.
So now since that I have the idea of how my collection is going to go about with the installation piece, I wanted to depict how my whole collection is going to take the key details from my inspiration and the model that I developed to the fashion design collection. So I wanted to keep the element of circular, the primary element there as a key detail in my collection, and the textures of the leaves and how the motion of the merry-go-round was there and how consumed the wearer would feel when throughout the collection. And I wanted to keep this drapery effect and then the structural element and the twisted details, since when you're in a merry-go-round, you feel fluid, you feel strong, and then it crosses these stages. So I wanted to show how these transition happen in my collection.
I see. そうで、今までのやつはインスピレーションとか、なんか物語を作るために時間を費やしたけど、ここからそれがどういうふうに自分のファッションコレクションとして成り立っていくかっていうセクションで、メリーゴーランドで感じる、なんか宙に浮いた感覚とか、なんかこう自分のことをちょっと強く感じるとか、そういうものの感情やったりとかっていうのをドレーピングやったりとか、なんかスカルプチャー的なアプローチで、デベロップしようっていうアプローチがここから始まる。Right.
So since the prints, I wanted it to be more organic and how it grows, like it's not a defined print. So I wanted to have the organic effect through my coding classes that I learned. So I wanted to try P5JS coding, and then I developed these prints and how the organic motion of the leaves could be developed. Like it's a recorded video of my print. So every time you click it, it renews it. So the position of the leaves change and then it gives a different pattern altogether. So I kind of like that effect to be developed for a fashion collection.
I see. そうで、彼女はその感情をまずどういうふうにやるかプリントとして表現しようということで、なんかどういうふうにオーガニックな感じで草木が生えていくか成長していくかっていうのを表現した、プリントでそこにモーションをつけて、こう一個一個違う感じでオーガニックに生えていく様をここのフィルムで表現しようね。Good.
And taking from those details, I wanted to also sketch out what would be the patterns that would draw out the organic forms into a motif, a block print, or anything that could be used. So I kept the block print and then the progressive patterns together. And also I had the organic detail going around. So I sketched out at the bottom, you could see, I sketched out how the leaves would move or like giving a root structure. Because I kind of connected the vein structure of the leaves and the human anatomy, like how you feel the blood vein structures. I kind of collaborated these two together to have a pattern like that together.
I see. で、彼女は次のステップとしてどういうふうにプリント柄になっていくかっていうことを調べよって、オーガニックシェイプとか、なんか人体の解剖学とかもちょっとここの時は考えて、どういうふうに自分たちの体の血管の血の流れとかが表現できるのかっていうのを、なんかオーガニックシェイプ人体とか、まあ自然のインスピレーションの葉っぱの草木の成長の仕方みたいなのをベースに柄を作ったっていう感じでね。
And this is my client that I wanted to explore, like on how the usually brands work. So I wanted to expand into avant-garde, to couture, and to ready-to-wear line, so that how it disintegrates with the pattern of what my collection base theme itself is. Because I feel somewhere it is lost. When you go to the ready-to-wear line and understand the theme, you wouldn't understand where it came from. So I wanted to keep element intact of what my base concept itself was about the motion and the silhouettes, the structures. So I kept the client line open so that we could have the series in the dropping lines like in different ranges and ready to wear line and couture and avant-garde.
で、これはなんか彼女のそのなんかこのコレクションをどういう人に着せるのかっていう提案で、まあなんかそのレディトゥウェアの日曜日まで落としすぎると自分のコンセプトとかメッセージがすごいなんかそぎ落とされて伝わらんなってくるき、その自分の目的としてはそのレッドカーペットとかそのオートクチュールとかそういうところにメッセージを届けるっていうのが今回のテーマですっていう感じよね。
So the materials also I wanted to keep the fluidity and then the rigidity intact. So I chose the mesh and microdot fusing to give the structure to the whole fabric. And I went for satin and then the tulle to give the fluidity and at the same time the lustrous feel. So that's about my materials.
Okay. So なんか流れるようなドレーピングとかを出すためにチュールとかサテンとかそういうものを使って、あとメッシュも入れてストラクチャーを作ったりとかもするけど、そういうのがまあ今回のマテリアルのチョイスです。Yeah.
And to talk about the silhouette, so since I wanted to have the structural elements more intact to the theme, so I drew out what were the key details taken from the inspiration. So the structure of the merry-go-round, from how it looks outside, and then how the structure molds with the fabric, and also the elements, how the motion goes. So I wanted to keep these elements for my silhouette development. So I collect all these images, what are more impacting about my theme and my inspiration, so that I could develop the silhouette development.
そう、これがシルエットのアイディア。そのどういうふうにメリーゴーランドが回るかとか、どういうふうな形をしてるのかっていうもの。で、ここで見てほしいがけど、そのデジタルのまとめ方がすごいうまいがね、この子は。まあ、デジタルの学科でもあるけど、そのシルエットデベロップメントをこういうふうに、スパッてまとめるっていうのって、なかなか出んと思うけど、その彼女のそのなんかどこ出身かとかもすごい出てくるまとめ方もすごいしゆなっていう感じだね。
So since I knew what was happening around and how I felt, but what was on top of the merry-go-round I couldn't see. So the fabric, the Pipli technique fabric, that is usually a small swatches which are this is the scene that I saw in India. So the technique is very rich in India, the Pipli technique, which is applique in French. So how the structure was placed on top, when you're in a motion, I wanted to depict how it blurred out. So the first image shows how the series, as you move, the movement of the merry-go-round, the prints move. So it almost blurs the lines. And I also wanted to expand the silhouette. So I cut into quadrants so that I can have the silhouettes from top. Since I have also this style of designing from top, so my theme looks balanced from looking at top and front and the different angles. So I took out the element of top of the merry-go-round itself to develop my theme from the top. And I cut it into quadrants and placed it in different axes. And in the third image, it is progressing. It's just growing out. And yeah, that's how it's represented.
それはなんかインドで結構有名ななんか生地を持ってきて、なんかアプリコットってフランス語で言うかな。それをなんかこうメリーゴーランド上から見たときこう回るじゃん。でそれがなんかこうパターンがそのちょっとなんかぼやけて見えるとかそういうのを試してみるやつ。でそのなんかちょっとずつこういう風に動くのどうかなっていう経過をここにまとめちゅう感じ。はい。Yes.
So keeping these elements, as I said, I wanted to break the stories. As how I felt in the motion, like to different stages. So in motion and fragments, so right when you get out of the merry-go-round, how you felt disintegrated, like how you feel like almost you can't balance it on your own weight. So I wanted to depict that disintegrating feel with the prints itself and the motion, the texture, as in the silhouettes. So how it will fall on your body, like the whole motion, if it just falls on top of you as a circular detail, how it would feel. So that's what I developed in this story, like how you could see in the sketches, how it disintegrates and gives the motion again. And it also, from every angle you could see, there is the whole base pattern is also circular, so it gives me that detail even in a drape or in a structured development silhouette. So that's what I developed in this. And then in the last image, it's about transitioning a garment into a different shape, where it's a zipper on top and how it raises, and when you remove it, how it falls and gives the motion even while twirling. So when you look from top, you could see the layers adding more the circular space into it. So that's the idea throughout in this story.
ムーブメントのサーキュラーとかがどういうふうに服になっていくかっていうことを考えよって、基本的にはその丸がこう回転するみたいなのがイメージで、なんかその体の上でどういうふうにムーブメントを起こせるかっていうので、なんかそのジップがあって開いて、それがどういうふうに落ちるかとか、そういうことも考えながらデベロップしいう感じやね。Amazing.
So this is body in motion. So in this story, I wanted to show how your body feels, like how you feel almost the giddiness about your head, and then your body. It almost moves in different axes as separate pieces. So that's what I felt, and I wanted to show in the silhouettes as well, like how it would move around on its own. And I wanted to give the detail as well. So I sketched out the outlines, like how it could be disintegrated or like adapted to the garments line. So this is the basic rendering that I do initially, how my team hits my inspiration and how I develop the sketches. So these are the basic sketches that I did, quick sketches, like how the silhouettes will be coming and how the garments would move and how the flapping motion will be there. You will be seeing the draping of these silhouettes, so you might understand better.
Okay. Would you mind to go back to that last page?
Yeah, sure.
そうやね、どういうふうに包み込まれて、そこの中で動きがこう感じられるのかっていうことを実験しうわけなんだけど、Did you do any draping before you did like this drawing? Or drawing fast?
Since I am a more rigid person because I have a background in leather, so my first instinct was to sketch out. So what I imagine, I sketch out, and my draping comes later because that's what I learned in PCA.
Okay. Yeah. So まずドローイングしてからっていう感じで、一番最初のアイディア出しのドローイングね。Okay. Great.
And so this is axis in motion. So how the merry-go-round goes in, how it goes to one layer to other. So you could see the racing of the seat. So it's not like this, and it goes like that. So I wanted to slice it into axis and how this motion would feel in different flaps. So kind of like this inspiration comes up here. How this could be integrated into the theme, like in axis, sharp cutting edges. So these were the silhouettes, the quick sketches that I rendered as in made. Yeah. So
I see. だからさっき見た記事を、ベースにどういうふうにそのムーブメントみたいなのがそのレイヤーとしていろんなアングルで表現できるのかっていうスケッチやね。
And the last one is layers. So how you would feel the layering about the motion itself. So it clouds upon you once you get out of the merry-go-round, how the different layers of the motion and everything, the vibration and all together, whatever happens, it comes in layers to you, the immediate feeling of how the body feels. So I wanted to show it in this last story and develop like how the layers and the twisted feel comes up, and how it would drape upon you, and then that is this story about it.
I see. そうなんかどういうふうにそのレイヤリングしてからそのムーブメントをもう一回その動きを出すのかっていういろんな組み合わせを考えたっていう感じだね。Good.
And so now that I have developed these different stories or the expressions how the body feels, I wanted to develop 3 sub-themes that would surface my whole collection, drawing the story of how the whole experience of trans state was. So this one is sculpted volume. And so since I have a background in leather design, I think rigid, and then I didn't want to I still wanted to stick to what my earlier learning was, and then how it could be developed for this collection. So in this sub-theme, you could see how the whole circular element clouds and then becomes a structured collection in this particular sub-theme. So this is more like a complementary to what my past is, and that is what this sub-theme discusses about.
まあその彼女はまあ柔らかいものもそうやけど、そのスカルプチャー的なアプローチもこれには取り入れたくて、そのなんかどういうふうに体が感じていくのか、そのなんかその空間みたいなものをまとうっていうことに対してなんかチャレンジするスカルプチャー的なアプローチをここでちょっとなんかどういう感じでやるかっていうコラージュやね。Good.
So I wanted to develop, so that's when I started, since my earlier slides were about my sketches. So that's how my design process was. So here I was trained, or I was introduced to how draping could be manipulated to give the volume and the structures. So I wanted to take advantage of it and then use how it could be developed in the structural theme itself, having the rigidity of the fabric with just drapes, how it could give the volume to the whole garment. So I explored with pleats that would add more volume, and at the same time it would give sharp structures. So as you could see in this, it's all the base pattern is circular, either circular or a semicircular cut pattern. So that gives you the cowl effect and then the draping effect and also the volume. As you could see here, it's a curve-like thing, but it almost looks like it's bulged out. So I wanted to have these contrasts in the rigidity and the fluidity here with the draping, and yeah, so that's how I.
彼女はなんかその絵描いてから始めるわけど、その次にドレーピングをこれミニマネキンの上でどういう風に形がなるかっていうので、プリーツを結構駆使しちゃって、そのシルエットも出せるし、そのなんかこのボリュームもなんかこう確立するっていうので、まあここでいろいろ試してみる感じよね。
So this is the couture lineup that I did, and how these could be wearable ones, and how it could just fall apart. And I also had this in mind while developing the volume. The theme of the sub-theme of the structural volume should be balanced out with the draping effect as well. So that's about this couture lineup. And yeah, and also here and there structure as well. Yes.
そうさっきのドレーピングからどういうふうにそのクチュールのラインナップとして展開するかっていうドローイングがこれやね。
And I wanted to also add the ready-to-wear line and have the same theme of the structural element. So these are the garments that the range that I wanted to add, and then how a bomber jacket or a skirt or a puffed sleeve top or a pant, trousers, and yeah, that's how I wanted to elaborate this collection with ruching, gathering, and how it could drop down to a ready-to-wear line, the whole couture and the concepts of couture to the ready-to-wear line with these different techniques in fabric.
そのなんかまあそれがどういうふうに日常着になっていくかっていうまあラインナップね。Question like why the couture line all in red?
Yeah.
No question. Why your couture lines everything in red?
Why my couture line? So yeah. I wanted to add the texture. Sorry.
No. Why in red? Like why
I wanted to show the human anatomy and the vein pattern. So I wanted to take the blood stream. That's why even in my prints I started with. So how the blood is consumed by the human body, I wanted to show in red itself. And I also had this in mind, how I could introduce prints to the surface later on. But I wanted to have the base concept constructed for this collection as in red. So it gives you the idea of how the impact is going to be about this collection.
I see. そうなんかその人間の解剖学とか調べたそのなんか血液とかそういうものがまあイメージにあって全部こう赤いコレクションって感じだったね。How about ready to wear? What's kind of like color palette?
I wanted to keep it open. So I wanted to have the prints to be integrated into these collections, so that it is not focused on just the couture prints lineup, but just the minimal details. So I thought, let me keep it open for this. so that there is more option for the silhouette textures, and then the prints, different mass producing techniques for printing or digitally making fabrics. So that would balance out the theme even in the different ranges.
I see. そう、彼女的にはこのレディティウェアはなんかこういろんなポテンシャルを秘めたくて、そのなんかプリントも入れたいし、違うカラーもっていうことで、まあ可能性を秘めるために確定してないって感じ
ですね。So this one is round values. So this theme, in this sub-theme, I explored about the flatness in the surface and how it could be draped around the garment and give a volume to it with just a flat surface. So this one explores how it adds different volume. As you could see in these drapes, it's the flat pattern that adds volume to it. As you could see, it's just layered together. It's again similar to this technique that you could see here in the draping itself. And I layered it and then folded it into pieces so that it adds more volume. And it's the base that builds the volume to the silhouette itself.
そのなんかラウンドシェイプがどういう風にして服になっていくかっていうその丸を使ったドレーピングの展開。Yeah.
And so this is the round values lineup for the couture line that I wanted to develop. And so these, as you could see in the previous draping images, so it's similarly layered along the sides. And I also wanted to have the fluidity in the first one and then dropped it with the drapes along the circular panels. And in the other one, it's like a jacket that overlaps on your surface. And yeah, I have this drape. I must be having it. I think it should be coming in the next images. So I wanted to keep the roundness of the merry-go-round and how round the garments could also adapt to those shapes. And that's how this lineup is about. And yes, and in ready-to-wear line, I wanted to have the jackets, the skirts, speaking the theme more. And then since as I already said, I wanted to keep the ready-to-wear lines as open because my whole focus was this collection was about developing the avant-garde line, which is going to come in the next slides. So I wanted to keep the ready-to-wear line and the couture line open with the silk and then the red color. And in the ready-to-wear line, it could be adapted to different prints, textures of the same theme from the prints that I earlier developed. And here are the jackets, and then the dress, the trouser, and the skirt, the top. Everything is folded and draped around from a flat volume, flat surface, and that's how this collection is developed.
I see. まあこれはさっきと同じ流れのオートクチュールラインからの派生でレディトゥウェアを作ったっていう感じやね。
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, it's okay.
I can go. So the last one is about I have learned the zero waste pattern making technique. I wanted to integrate this in how you feel twisted when you are out of the merry-go-round. I wanted to keep that element with this technique. So I wanted to explore the tunnel and displacement technique in this theme, like how a body could be twisted with the silhouette itself, how it could be metamorphically keeping the structure twisted on the surface of the wearer like that. So I started draping things like how it could go in two ways and how it could be draped along this side and then brought back to the other side and to add volume to it. So I explored how these twisted and tunnel displacement techniques work. So you usually go through a hole and it comes out, the fabric, and then it drapes again. So I wanted to introduce this technique in this collection and at the same time use drapes and here and there. Yeah.
それなんかどういうふうに生地をツイストして作っていくかっていうところの研究ね。Did you say zero wasted?
Yes, zero. I wanted to introduce the techniques, as in the practices that I followed in the zero waste technique learning, like how you do tunnel and displacement technique, the mark glue of surface.
ミルク入れて。はい。それ、yeah.
Yeah. So yes, in zero waste technique, there is tunnel and displacement technique where you cut a hole and it goes through that. The fabric goes through that. So I wanted to adapt those techniques into this collection. While this is a circular pattern and definitely not a zero waste one, there will be a minimal amount of waste. But almost all these drapes that I practiced were from like say five to six panels of circular things that I draped the whole draping exercise with.
I see, I see. それなんか無駄の出ないゴミの出ないパターンメイキングっていうのが、まあ、その出だしのコンセプトというかそのスターティングポイントだ別にこれがそういうことじゃないけどそういうのの、まあ、やり方みたいなのを研究してそのツイストさせてやっていくっていうのを発展させる感じよね。Great.
And this is the lineup for the couture one, how the twisted techniques could work and how it almost looks like the body is twisted in that the earlier themes that we were talking about, the stages, how you feel twirling, and then the motion of how the body is in motion. So I wanted to integrate that in this lineup, like as we saw on the previous slides where I discussed about the body in fragments, body in motion and all that. This one is more about body in motion, how your body would feel in a merry-go-round, how twisted, and then how the turns would represent into silhouettes. So that I represented in this lineup.
その中メリーゴーランドでどういうふうに体が感じるかとかどういうふうにこう絡み合うかみたいなのをそのツイスト系のテクニックを使って考えたクチュールデザイン。Right.
Similarly, I wanted to introduce it with the like as you could see, even in my jackets, with the fastening, I wanted to have that twisted effect. So your body is almost draped around in a twisted form. So I wanted to keep that, and then how it could drop down into a ready-to-wear line like that with the theme itself, and how the circular element is intact even in the ready-to-wear line. And yes, so that's about this lineup. And here are a few other drapes that I did, which shows the effect of how the inspiration for twisted feel and all I wanted to represent in my collection. So in this one, you could see how it is buttoned here and then buttoned out and how it gives that volume, like how it structures into the form itself. So as I said, in the top, I designed from the top also. So I look at the views, how it shows the bottom, as you see from the top, how the silhouette looks up to you. So I wanted to take images of that as well. So how it grows from the body. So the body is a primary point, and from there, how the silhouette grows. So I wanted to use that. Even in the time here, the different points of focus, I wanted to have that element growing, and then the blooming part, like how the merry-go-round progresses from one point to open up. And that is about the silhouettes exploration.
そうなんかメリーゴーランドの時とかってなんか中心ポイントからグーって回転するじゃん。そういう感じでその体をプライマリーポイントとしてどういうふうにそのシルエットがこううわーって広がっていくかっていうのを見たくて上から写真撮ったりとかもしる。Yeah.
As I said, even from the small details where it generates, here it's a folded drape. So as you loosen out the drape, it falls like that. So when it whirls, it gives a volume on the left corner where it's bunched. All the drapes are bunched, and it opens another circular path over there, and then a circular silhouette over here with the shoulder. So when you're looking at from top, you will have these round style lines, as you call. So I wanted to keep the style lines impact even when it's unbuttoned and when it's buttoned. So you have the streaks of that when the drape is held on there with the button, and when it's let loose, you will see it in motion where the blooming is there, where the growing of the merry-go-round is there.
どうこれもさっきと一緒のメリーゴーランドみたいなのの、まあ、インスピレーションからどういうふうにこうシルエットが展開できるかっていう感じよね。Good.
So this is my for my avant-garde line. I wanted to have a very direct expression of how I felt as a theme itself. So I wanted to show how body is actually a void and how the print started growing. So the series will show how it grows as big. So I wanted to have these prints growing from one point as a circular. So on the left, you see the drape of it. So the edges are the edges of the growing where the ends meet. So I wanted to bunch all the drapes at the hip, as you could see on the left, and then how it falls along the front princess line. It gives almost, it's just growing onto the body slowly. So I wanted to show that stages of that in my avant-garde lineup.
その丸のカッティングからどういうふうにそのプリーツが展開していってどういうふうにこうなんか成長していくかみたいな感じの、まあ、フレアスカートの展開よね。Yep.
And this is from the center where it's growing, the prints, the vein pattern and the blood vessel pattern. I wanted to, from the human anatomy, I wanted to show how it generates to a bigger form and how it fills up the space. I also wanted to give the edges a darker color, like a rigid, solid pattern or solid color fill there, because when you look it from a distance, it gives an illusion of it's already folding. So on the left, the drape is actually the flat surface drapes. So it gives the fluttering effect as the person walks, because it's like this. Again, as I said, it gives that fluttering effect along the sides. So I wanted to add more illusion to it. So I gave a solid fill along the corners. So it almost gives you the focus to the central point. You're focusing more deeper on the inside. Yes.
これもなんか人体解剖学とかのそのなんか血管とかそういう動きを使っちゃってさっきのテキスタイルを大きくしてそのなんか 2D やけど 3D に展開することによってその中心に目が行くようにっていうなんか設計をしたタイプやね。Okay.
And in my last piece, what I wanted to do was how the extension of this works. Since it's a huge form, the whole panel itself is so huge. I wanted to try out with papers. Papers usually take the surface of the body form as rigid and how I would want the collection to be, because I'm going to use mesh for developing the collection. So I was preferring more of a flatter surface that is not drapey in this piece. So I pinned up the color papers like that so that I could see how the volume races and then goes back. So this is the draping exercises that I did so that I can have an idea how it has to be fastened along, and then also give an idea of where it has to be sewn. So you have to find out where the seams can be drawn and where it could be fastened, or which fastening you could give, like either zipper or a knot or a corset tying or anything, button, wherever the buttons have to come. So I tried out these draping, like quick drapings to understand how the structure is going to fit the form.
そう、彼女はどういうふうにしてもっとシルエットが展開できるのか、どういうふうにしてその延長できるのかっていうところを試して、どういうふうにこのシルエットがうまくいくのかっていうなんかクロージャーの部分とかをまあコンシダーしたっていう話よね。
So this is the lineup of my collection, the avant-garde collection, because the couture line and then the ready-to-wear line were this additional work that I wanted to finish the whole collection with. So this was actually the assignment or the whole requirement for the collection was. So I wanted to show you both, because so you could understand how this theme could disintegrate to different lines, say couture or ready-to-wear. So this is the avant-garde line. And so look one, how the construction would work based on my draping and my understanding with the trials. So I went in for the base body to be a corset, and how another layer could be sewn along the crease of the bottom skirt where it is going to be fixed. Since it is a very huge panel and it needs a support, so I went for a corset because it will keep the whole garment intact to the body, so it doesn't lose its shape, and at the same time it gives the fall as is. So this is the construction details that I did, the technical details.
これが設計図ですね。そのなんかベースがコルセットがあって、そのコルセットを軸にそのでっかいパネルをサポートして組み立てるっていう設計図のページ。Yeah.
So this one is the layers, how it is going to be sequentially placed with the smaller and the bigger one, and how it is going to be fastened at the sides with the zipper. So it's just one piece that is going to connect the front and back that will be seamed along the princess line. So as you could see in the draping image, the princess line is pinned up. Do you? I think if you're able to see, the princess line is pinned up so that from there the recessed seam is going to connect the back and the front with a central piece. So that's the diagram showing here.
これはこのドレスの組み立て方よね。レースのドレスがあって、そこにレイヤーが重なってでっかいサークルのシルエットを作るっていう。
And this is the look 3, and the base body is a tube, and then how the drape is going to fit along the hip is what the collection is, the dress is going to differentiate from. So I thought that pin tucks will be on an axis of circular point, and it will be progressively sewn so that it gives that bulging effect. And to layer it, I pleated the mesh surface so that it takes the shape and gives that curve. So that's this construction.
これがこのドレスのやり方で、そのタックをどういうふうにカッティングしてから入れていくかっていうのとベースのドレスが一つあるって感じだね。Good.
And since lockdown changed the whole plans for us, so I had to think of digital how I could represent the collection digitally. So I initially chose Maya, how it could be layered, the prints. So that's how you develop the mold, as in the solid surfaces, how each fabric is going to be represented. I developed this piece, this style, because this is the most easiest one to start with. So also my prints are the root-like structures. So I developed the root-like structures first, and then placed it on the surface, and how it is going to meet the human form and how it is going to be fastened together. So
before COVID, you guys are supposed to make actual pieces?
Before COVID, we just had our midterms where it was just the draping stage. So from then on, we had to find out an alternative so that we can represent our collection. So digital was the only option left. So since you can't go for sourcing because my materials were stuck in transit, I had to book the print materials from India. So it was stuck in the transit and I couldn't get it. And at the same time, I had to develop the collection. So somewhere I have to represent it.
So did you plan to make actual pieces?
Yes, the avant-garde line where my plan to develop. So since that was my collection, graduation collection, and the couture and the ready-to-wear line are just additional work, I could say, because I wanted to see how it would look. So yeah.
I see. So なんか彼女はコロナがあって作れるようになってどういうふうに自分のアイディアを表現するかっていうのをデジタルに絞ったわけで、その前まではそのドレスを実際に作っていく流れにしちゃったけど、状況がデジタルにスイッチした。で、彼女自体はもともとそのデジタルの授業を取ってたき、それでできるってことでそっちにシフトした。で、そのオートクチュールとかレディトゥウェアとかそういうふうに彼女前もって見せたやつは授業とか関係なくて自分がどういうふうにデザイナーとしてデベロップできるのかっていうのを表現しよったけど、本当のその課題としてはこの今見せるやつでっかいシルエットの3つのやつが学校の本来の課題やったっていう感じね。Great.
So since I was completely new for the software, I was struggling a lot, and then it was really a big thing for me to get the drapes itself in the form. So as you could see in the above image, it's just flat, and then I had to build the drapes by pushing the mesh structure. Like it's a solid form. It just takes a solid form. From there, you have to sculpt the whole drapes. So it was very easy to explain how through draping, but when you have to do it digitally, it is more like you have to sculpt it by layer, like pixel by pixel. So that's how difficult it was.
I know. そう、彼女はこのソフトウェアを初めて使った時すごい難しかったけど、ステップバイステップでピクセルバイピクセルでこうやって作っていって、スカルプチャーをドレーピングしたりとかってそういう風に組み上げていった。So which software is it?
This is Maya. This is Maya. So I developed this lineup, like almost what idea of the collection could be, at least so that I could deliver what my inspiration and how this collection has to be represented. And I reworked on this, and then how the opening of it will be, and give the volume and what kind of a volume the whole garment is going to take up. And in the end, my friend introduced me to marvelous designer, and that is this. Yeah. So
I love it.
Yeah. So this is the kind of volume that I wanted to have, the draping and also the fall of it. So I really like this software because this is what a designer would need rather than the Maya. This is a learning process. I was just understanding how that software would work for a garment collection and how a Maya this is Marvelous Designer. This is the best software I think for a clothing design would be. So you can develop from pattern. So you will mention the pattern and where it has to be sewn. So it gives the fall on the model itself. So it's like almost you're dressing the model like that and dropping.
これはマーブルデザインっていうのを使いよって、そのなんかパターン引いてからそこからテクスチャー与えて、だからその最初のマヤはもうちょっと見たちょっとなんかゲームチックなやつで、こっちはもうちょっとなんか重みとかが表現できるっていうので、新しくトライしたっていうやつよね。
So, I will show you what my recent works are for my like after this COVID. So,
で、その学校終わってからの作品を今から見せてくれる。で
I was inspired by, so this whole pieces are Valentino's collections, like how they're very romanticizing the insect element and the floral element together. But what I felt was the insects were like not as given a focus. So I thought, why cannot I try out and develop the insect as a focus and develop floral patterns from that? Rather taking insect as a direct element and then placing it there. Like as you could see on the left, you could see the butterflies and then all these prints here and there.
Wait, we are not seeing it.
It's like the bee. It's a stylized version of the bees on the left, which gives the.
No. We are not seeing.
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't share the new screen.
Yeah. We are still with the. Last
sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, so as you could see, the prints and then these elements of insects I wanted to develop in, like, just try out how insects will be a surface print itself. So I drew out an insect image and then I was just stylizing it, how it could work in a Baroque pattern. And then in this, it's the insect itself. So I placed it in a linear sequence and in a floral pattern. And then the left is a black and white image, the black and white silhouette of the image, and the right one is a rendered one. So I wanted to show how it would give you an impact of a floral pattern, but it's actually an insect.
Right.
Here it's moth and that insect. I bloated it to different sizes, so you will give all these sketches will give you a very romanticized look. The base I wanted to give empty, like wherever there is a white space. So I thought this would add more drama to the romanticizing look of Valentino itself.
Right.
So this is the last one. Yeah, these are my recent works in prints that I've been doing. So it's the same butterfly, the moth one, but I placed it in this sequence, just filling the red space. And that itself gives a more focus to the center and growing as a pattern. And in the left corner, it's like a blooming flowers, but its insects are blooming like that.
なるほど。そのなんかそのバレンティーノのそのインセクトコレクションをモチーフに、その彼女はテキスタイルが結構得意やき、そのなんかインセクトをどういう風にして、そのロマンティックでなんかお花みたいな感じのなんかイリュージョンの柄にしていくかっていうのを作ったやつよね。これ卒業後のやつね。Awesome.
Yeah, so that's about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I got a couple of questions, but before that, like, let's have like a kind of like 3 minutes-ish like break, and then we're gonna come back and then do the